want to start off with BLM. What is BLM? I think we've all heard of BLM. Okay, it's a movement that actually started in 2012. I feel like everyone thinks it started. I think everyone thinks that it started in 2020 with following the death of George Floyd, but it actually started in 2012 with the death of Trayvon Martin, and who was shot by a white cop. Now, for me, I feel like the BLM movement has been there for centuries and centuries and centuries. It's been there since the time Rosa Parks, I think the founder of the BLM movement was Rosa Parks, when she refused to give up her seat for a white man, which, yani, all hail Rosa Parks, honestly. I feel like BLM, does it have to, I feel like everyone points fingers when the topic of gun violence against black communities and in general. I feel like it only everyone points fingers in the U.S. and I feel like that is true. The majority of them happen in the U.S., but I feel like it's happened in other countries, not necessarily with black people, but people of color. So, for example, in the UK, Muslims get some Muslims have gotten killed in the UK. Also in history, we've learned from history that POCs, or people from different religions, have also been a target to basically human rights violations. For example, the Holocaust. Literally 6 million have literally been killed in the Holocaust. And some Holocaust survivors that have survived till this day are still traumatized by the events that happened. The Holocaust the reason why there was a Holocaust in the first place is because Hitler needed a scapegoat or someone to blame for what happened in World War I. And for some reason, he blamed the Jews because they are the richest. I think in his mind, the Jews are the ones that control the world economy, which somewhat is true. But yeah, so BLM, I feel like even BLM, Black Lives Matter, shouldn't be a thing, shouldn't be a US thing. It should be all over the world. It should be a global thing. It should be a global movement, because the discrimination against black people does not only happen in the US, and I feel like everyone thinks that. It happens in the UK more times than you think. You know what? From a person that used to live in Europe is more racist than the US. And a lot of my US friends actually think that. A lot of my black people, all of my black friends in the US that have immigrated to France or the UK or Germany or Switzerland, they've also felt like it was more racist there than actually they felt more targeted in Europe than in the US. The difference is the US just uses guns and doesn't have good gun laws due to the Second Amendment, which is everyone has the right of open arms, which I think should be eradicated from the American Constitution. But in in Europe, you're pretty much safe. Gun violence isn't really gun violence is a thing, but there are rules for it. Also, these stereotypes that happen against black people are horrendous. For some reason, a black person can get arrested for killing someone, self-defense, but a white person who is underage, I'm talking about Kyle Rittenhouse, who is underage, isn't allowed to use a AK-47, killed, 3 civilians. Pretty much school shooters, the majority of them being white, have found a loophole in the system. Because they are white, they know they aren't gonna get in trouble. Literally, a literal mayor came out and said, oh, he was having a bad day. So what? That does not give him the right to kill people. Just because he had a bad day. He should be in a psychiatric facility or a psych ward, or worse, in jail. So that's the take on BLM, the prejudice against black people. You're gonna see in the video me asking what people thought of the video. How do you think governments should handle the situation because it's been getting out of hand recently. And how does the video link with BLM? The music video actually made me, like Muhammad, cry because it's super, like, it shows you the reality of what happens to you if you're a black person in the US. If you're pretty much just walking by for example, walking at a supermarket, in a grocery store, and one white person can just come up to you and say, oh, just come up to you and say, you're stealing, whatever, blah, 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 I'm gonna go call the police. And you were pretty much doing nothing. According to Genius, the part where it says, look how I'm living now, police be tripping now, a common stereotype is that police, particularly white officers, are systematically racist towards black people. A racist officer may find it so hard to swallow the fact that a black man, such as Childish Gambino, is reaching high levels of success and fame when they hold prejudices towards people of his race. This has happened way too many times. I've never seen this, but I've read articles saying that people actually got arrested for going into their homes due to the fact that white people or white officers can't, like, believe that a person who is black is reaching high levels, like is pretty much high on the social hierarchy. Because the common stereotype black people get is that they live in ghettos, or they live in slums, or they're pretty much, they're broke because they buy drugs or they snort drugs and whatever. So the part where, like, in the article where it says a racist officer may find it hard to swallow the fact that a black man is reaching high levels of success and fame they hold, which when they hold prejudices towards his race, is super true, and it's super annoying because how do people think like, for example, Childish Gambino, how do people think it's okay to, like, go judge someone's success due to the fact that they're black? It's so mind-boggling. Honestly, I can't believe that people actually believe that. And the way like white officers or the racist officers are thinking, I like to call that the Hitler thinking, or thinking like Hitler. I feel like Hitler had pretty much the same ideology as what white police officers have. The fact that a black person is automatically a criminal is so wrong. Like, you shouldn't, like, think like that. Like this is the same thing as saying remember when Hitler was killing all the Jews. I get it. It's not like this. It's not the same story, because one is battling the Jews and the other is battling black people in the US. But when the Jews were getting killed in the Holocaust, this is pretty much the same thing, but it isn't by a ruthless dictator. It's by one individual who cannot believe that a black person is rich or has money or is living this lavish lifestyle. So yeah. Also in the music video, you see, like, in the middle where the choir is singing and Childish Gambino shoots them. This actually happened in the 1960s in Alabama, and he was pretty much, like, shedding light that this isn't a recent thing, because if you see in one of the comments in the YouTube videos of the music video saying, I can't believe people think that Childish Gambino has predicted the future. This has been an ongoing thing for centuries and centuries to come. Now, the moment that everyone's been waiting for, the music video, the reactions. Oh my god, the music video. The reactions were actually, like, kind of didn't surprise me, and I feel like you're gonna see in a lot of the reactions people pointing fingers on the US, which there was a part of it which was true. The US has a very bad, like, it doesn't have a good way with handling people with guns necessarily. But I just wanted to say that this does not only happen in the US, it doesn't only happen to black people. People of color are pretty much targeted every single day because of their skin color, their religion, their beliefs, their culture, etc., etc. So pointing fingers wasn't really the best thing to do, but they kind of have a point. So without further ado, let's move on to the reaction.
No.
Okay, go. Okay, what did you think of the video?
It was a bit traumatizing, but it had like a hidden, not hidden, a meaning behind it.
How do you think this video, Yanni, was very significant for Black Lives Matter?
Thank you. It was significant because they were talking about gun violence, which plays a huge role in deaths in America. It's the #1 leading cause of deaths, especially in school. School shooters, we won't talk about that right now, but I think it has a really well intention behind it.
Thank you very much. This is Malakani.
Malakani, grade 11, guys.
What do you think of the video? Okay. What did you think of the video?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty powerful video, right? It's talking about obviously a lot of social issues in America, but I think it expands way beyond just what's happening in America. It's, you know, as Canadians, we often think that racism is more of like an American problem, but I think it's really prevalent in Canada, especially with more of the Asian population, I think.
Do you think there's like any solutions that the US could have made, or like any other country with gun violence? Because killing, like shootings in general, they are the #1 leading cause of death in the US.
Yeah, I think, well, as a Canadian, right, we have much stricter gun laws. And also I think it's a cultural thing too in America, where gun culture is just such a symptom of so many different regional parts of America. And I think it's very different in like rural America versus in the city America, and how guns are used and the mentality around it. But certainly I think if you look at most of the modern world, most countries have very strict gun laws. America does not. And it doesn't seem like it's a surprise that in America there's way more gun deaths and way more gun violence. So I certainly think laws would help.
Thank you very much. So, Mr. Chai just watched the video, and what were your thoughts?
I thought the video was just demonstrating some key issues in the history of the U.S. in regards to race, and a lot of it has been sort of, you know, sort of like whitewashed. They cover it up in a lot of cases. Sometimes I think there's been more of an effort to uncover, not just recently, like with the Black Lives Matter movement, but even before. There's people are learning more about the history. I think really a few years ago there was even before the Black Lives Matter movement, there were movies like 12 Years a Slave and other movies that really were starting to. These topics were not addressed by the general public, very well. Okay, and so I think it was starting to develop a conversation, and I think a video like this is also showing that too. You would have asked about the gun violence as well. The gun violence part, I think, also is tying into American history, the idea of how guns were used as both a tool of racism and race control of population. Also, too, as it's become in recent years, sort of a symbol for some people of like, it's like a sacred object or something, I don't know. So I think it's contributed more to problems, and it could also maybe contribute to some of the ideas behind police shootings and things where people assume that people are well armed, and so I'm not saying that doesn't mean that police that murder unarmed people should be, given any sort of leniency, but still the idea is that, there's a lot of people with guns, and a lot of people with guns who want to do harm, You were asking about the choir being shot. I'm not sure, but I think it may be an analogy to like the Birmingham bombing, church shootings, black churches in Birmingham in the 1960s. But it could be some other,
How do you think this video links to Black Lives Matter?
So I think the Black Lives Matter movement came, of course, out of what was happening before before, but even with the George Floyd movement, but even before that, I think it links because it's tied in with gun violence, it's tied in with racial profiling, it's tied in with racism in general. And yeah, I think the video it shows that, because it shows like these sort of, even though it's a very harsh video in some ways, they show really beautiful aspects of the history of African American culture in the United States, you know, and the music that they were playing, and you know, the spiritual life that people in the choir, and there's so many contributions of African Americans to the American culture. But it also juxtaposes it with that violence as well, which is also part of the history. And so I think, yeah, so that's where Black Lives Matter also brings this to the forefront.
Thanks, so
Yeah.
So we now have Farida. She watched the video before. So what were your thoughts on the song and the video?
I like how it spoke about the reality of black community in America and how it's really affecting them.
Okay. What do you think government should do to like improve like what's happening right now, like black terror, like terrorism against black, towards black people, the prejudice that's going on?
Well, obviously, first thing is not to listen to the stereotypes around them. Just because like there's a black man walking on the street with like a hood up doesn't mean he's dangerous. I mean, he's just going out for a walk. So that shouldn't be something that they see as dangerous. Like, yeah.
Thank you very much. Right now we have Miss Angel. She's also watched the video. So what do you think of the video and the song in general?
I really liked the video, and I thought the song was very catchy. And Childish Gambino is a very popular person, so lots of people saw it, lots of people heard it, lots of people sing it, which is cool. The video itself, pretty impactful. I don't know what else you want me to add here.
That's fine.
This is a very surface level answer.
So how does this music video or like the song in general link with BLM?
So, I mean, I think it's fine. It turns off the light. I think that it ties obviously in quite well. I don't like interviews. I get the microphone. It's my show now. Okay, so the whole Black Lives Matter movement wouldn't have been as successful as it has already proven to be if it wasn't for people who are quite popular kind of bringing in those ideas into mainstream media with their songs. So, thank you. I think that he was able to popularize kind of some of the concepts that were going on in a way that people who may not know much about Black Lives Matter were able to kind of understand more of the perspectives from people of color and what goes on in a way that is fun and catchy and kind of drags in lots of people.
What do you think government should do? What do you think government should do to like stop or end the prejudice against the black community, especially in us?
Dismantle the government, dismantle the police.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's fine.
And kind of take the money that they're using to dismantle those systems and put them into more social programs.
Thank you very much. How do you think this thing, like, how does this music video link with Black Lives Matter?
I think it shows how a lot of innocent black teenagers die on our streets and how it's not okay.
What do you think government should do to like stop the prejudice against black people?
I think governments should enforce more restrictions on guns and more restrictions on child stuff.
Thanks. So what was your thoughts of the song and the video, etc.?
My thoughts when it comes to the protests or the movement of BLM, Black Lives Matter, I would say that this video actually represents black people in the States, where it was very smart that the singer himself would be black and he would show the violence and what the black people experience on daily basis.
What do you think government should do to like stop the prejudice against the black community in general?
There's definitely a lot to do. First of all, to treat everyone in the states equally, to make it like to change the way they view them. First of all, we have to change the way they view them. Also, we need to change like one of the amendments which allows which allows the Second Amendment which allowed them to bear arms. They should remove that amendment because this is mostly the cause of development in the
Thank you very much. Okay, I'm gonna put this in the blooper just because of choice. Oh, I missed it. Okay, so we This is Charlie, my assistant.